not pay for any recruiting service. Now, I'm going to probably piss somebody off in the room. Do not pay for any. The only recruiting services that I've ever used, any place I've ever been, is the ones that we pay for. You guys should not be paying. Do we get them? And are they sent to us? Yeah, but they go right in the trash. You know, I'm just telling you, you know.
So you're paying $1,000.
And if you've already paid for it, I apologize. But to me, you shouldn't be.
See what I'm saying? Wait. Follow up.
The question is about how to get on our radar. That's the point I made earlier today. The way social media is now, we know the people that we need to get in contact in each state, in each area that's going to help us. And a lot of us have had the same people recruiting places forever. I walk in this room, I see coaches from all over the country that I've known for the last 20 years. You know, the sleeper recruit does not exist anymore. You know, so it doesn't matter your star rankings, where you're at, you'll be found. If you have a school that you love, go to their camp. But like anything, you should have an A list, a dream school that you'd love to go to. You should have a B list of schools that you think actually fit your son. Then you should have some C fallback schools, because the reality is the C fallback schools for most kids, that's probably a dream school. Because as parents, you guys are all biased. You think your sons are the best? Probably not.
You're listening to the Football Scholarship Podcast, the playbook for parents and athletes who want to secure the best football scholarships possible. From securing a D1 football scholarship in the SEC at Ole Miss at just £5,700, myself, to helping 83% of the athletes I mentor achieve football scholarship offers and 42% going Division I. I've learned countless lessons that I'll be sharing right here with you. Join me and my co-host Brian Overton, who has 15 years of D1 college football recruiting experience, as we interview top experts, successful athletes, and discuss current recruiting trends. Together, we'll help you navigate the recruiting process so you too can achieve your dream of running out of that tunnel in front of 100,000 screaming fans.
Look, a lot to unpack here, and I'm glad we're breaking this down, because, you know, before, like, any time that you use any kind of blanket statements, right? Anything that's blanket, everybody should do this. All you have to do is, you got to be really, really careful, right? James Franklin is talking to the freaking top of the top SEC, Big Ten type programs and schools that they already have their, like, this is, be very careful, very, very careful, right? The blanket statements. Brian, you got a lot to unpack. I'm going to let you do. I just want to hit one thing. He actually nailed it with the recruiting services, right? He said it very clear. And we say this all the time. You pay for, when in the recruiting services, let's just be clear, he's referring to the recruiting softwares, right? Where you create a profile and you send emails through those softwares, right? Very, very, he made it clear. Brian says this over and over again. You send an email through a recruiting software, it is not going to the coach, right? It is going into a folder that the secretary created for that coach, so he doesn't have to see emails coming from that platform. And you know the name of that platform, right? Because there's a couple of them, but there's the big one. You send, and you're trying to target SEC and Big Ten programs, forget it. It's not going to those coaches. That's not what those softwares are created for. Brian, I know we got a lot to unpack here, and this is going to be a fun one for us, but what's your initial reaction?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You know, he was talking in front of a group of coaches, obviously, you know, and he's talking about, you know, the very top players in the country, you know what I mean, as far as when he said, you know, there are no players out there that are, you know, I don't know the word, I can't remember the word he used, underdog players, or, you know what I'm saying, players they don't know about. And at that level, sleeper recruits, you know, and he's absolutely right when it comes to that level, you know, that he's talking about. But, you know, I want to more so dial in on some other things he said, that pertain to, exactly what we do and why we do those things. And the other thing on the recruiting service is a big one is like softwares and things like that. Richie talked about that sends automated emails and things like that. But the other people that are out there now that are recruiting services are the ones that you pay them and they promote you on social media themselves. You're not doing it. They're doing it because they say they have a big following and coaches follow them and all this stuff. So recruiting services are evolving in a lot of ways, in how they're choosing to do things. So those are bottled in there as well. But what I want to hit on, and several things I want to hit on, but I'll stay with the social media piece now that, he brought that up. He literally said with the way social media is set up, you know what I mean? It makes it, in a sense, he's saying if you do it correctly, it makes it so much easier. You have to capitalize on it to get yourself out there, which is exactly
Right.
what we teach our guys to do, which is why we teach the marketing side of it and promoting themselves on social media, specifically on X, which is why we teach them how to create their bio, you know what I mean, or set it up the
Yeah.
right way. That's conducive to recruiting. We tell them how to post in the right way. We tell them how to tag area coaches. Once we get area coaches in our program, you know why we tag area coaches? Because James Franklin just said, I know I've got guys that have been recruiting the same place for many years. What he was talking about is he's got coaches on his staff that have been coaching, recruiting certain areas for many years, and they've established relationships with high school coaches. Well, you know what? Those are the coaches that we're telling our guys to tag and post. You know why? So they can also build a good relationship with the player. So once they build a good relationship with the player, now they go to the school, to the coach they may have known for many years too, and now they have a good relationship to both of them, and both of them can sell them to the school. Okay, so all that goes together, right? And he was talking about area coaches, when he said that, and with the social media, and all that good stuff. And then he got into, like I said, the softwares that they use, to pluck players and things like that. Their systems that they use to pull the top players in each region, out of there. So again, he's talking about all those guys, right?
What
We're
can we?
talking about all those guys that he's not talking about, and he's talking about the tools that we teach the guys he's not talking about, how to
Right.
get noticed and how to get on other schools'
Yeah.
radars. So that's the
So
beauty of the video. You know what I mean? You can't get
yeah.
caught up in him saying they're no sleeper athletes. You got to remember who he's talking to, the audience he's talking to, and the
For
group of
the
kids that
Yeah.
he is talking about.
So
Okay,
let's
that's what
break.
you have to decide.
Yeah, so let's make it real. You nailed it. I'm gonna really let's make it layman's terms, easy and simplified, right? Like he's talking to the 1%, right, of the 1% that gets scholarships. Okay, like we're talking 1.1 million high school football players. We're talking about the top 500 to 700 guys out of 1.1 million. Okay, that he's talking about, right? This is the very top echelon, all the top, Ohio State, Penn State, now Oregon, but the top Big Ten programs are all recruiting the same
Just
guys.
put the
It's this,
Power Four in there, the whole
but
Power Four.
but even I mean, but like even like
Because
so
they
let's
can't get them all. I'm talking about like 700, 800 kids. You know what I mean?
right, but I'm saying like so the SEC and the Big Ten, like these, because you were you built the department at Arkansas, right? You were all going for the same guys, Ole Miss, Arkansas, like they were all going for the same guys, right?
Yeah.
So
And my point is though too, Richie. Like even when I was at North Carolina, we're still going after like the top 4, 5, 600 kids in America. You know what I mean? That was in the ACC. So
yeah,
it's a big blanket of guys that he's talking about. Is my point. That's all I'm
yeah,
saying. You
but it's
know.
not. It's we're not talking about thousands and thousands. Like that's not what it is. That's why when
No.
he's so okay. So then let's be clear. What are the softwares that they pay for? Right, 247 Sports, On Three. Right, they pay those. So talk
But
about that, Ryan, because he said we pay for the softwares. Walk parents through exactly how that works.
yeah, and so it's not really the recruiting services they're paying for, like
no,
247 and Rivals and all that stuff. There are other services that gather information, right? That's what they do. So they go out to all these high schools, they gather information, They meet with coaches and they're really organized and they've got really good softwares and they push players to them out way out, like 2-3 classes out. So those are the softwares that he's talking about that they subscribe to that feed them information, and it's kind of like a la carte. Like you can pick the regions of the country that you want all the information from those, from those players. That's the software that he's talking about. That's why he said it's very hard for them not to know about you even 2 or 3 classes out. And this may be before you even get ranked by any of the recruiting services, right? Because
Oh, okay.
for instance, you're a 27 right now. We just did a really good evaluation on a good 2027 lineman. Depending on where he is and regionally, like if they recruit that region, I guarantee you they already know who he is. I guarantee you he's on their radar. And if at a minimum, he's probably on their board or in some kind of list for a 2027 right now. I can almost guarantee it. And he may not have one offer right now, but when he hits his junior year, and it really starts to click and he goes to a couple camps and now he starts to blow up, they already know about him. So those are the softwares he's really talking about. But it's the kids that aren't at that level early and late that we're talking about, that we're working with, that need to do the things that he's talking about in the video in order to get their self seen, is what I love about the video.
Because even those services that they're paying for, we're still talking about the top Power 4 players.
Yes, that's
right?
what I'm saying. Yeah.
And like, you a lot of people don't get evaluations and they think their son, just like James Franklin said, their son is a Power 4 player. And like, it is even like great high school football players, you evaluate them and they even have the size and they're really a Division II, right? Or they're at best an FCS. Like, and so, you make this mistake, it's your junior year all of a sudden, and you're really a D2, but you're now waiting, which is an awful idea regardless. And now you're in big trouble, right? So that's why, you start doing outreach your freshman year. You start building your social media up your freshman year. Your sophomore year, you keep doing outreach. Your junior year, you keep doing outreach. Now they can reach out to you, but you don't wait to do outreach until they can reach out to you. No, you start doing outreach right away when you have high school game film, right? So I want to make that clear too. So James Franklin here is right on everything. What he's saying is completely accurate. The verbiage and what he's saying, we just got to get really, really clear on. And which bucket are you in, right? Like, I don't know who he's speaking to. I will say this. It sounds like there's a lot of kids in the room. So it sounds like he's speaking to a high school.
I doubt it very seriously. I think it's a group of high school coaches. You know what I'm saying?
I thought I heard. Okay.
Because there's not very many instances legally he can get in front of kids other than like a camp or something on his campus. So I'm pretty confident. Like, that's why I say I think he said he sees guys in the room that he's known for many years because they're high school coaches and his coaches have gone and recruited those schools and they've recruited their players. You know what I'm saying? I'd be shocked if there were like actual kids in there. I think it's a group of high school coaches.
But this is like
And
one of the
parents,
things
maybe.
this is one of the things that frustrates me, and we spend so much time on this, but because we're different than everybody else, it's really hard for people to understand it. Is, he says don't pay for recruiting services, and most coaches say this to parents, and I agree. I would not pay for a recruiting service. I would not pay for someone to promote your kid. I would not pay for connections. I think I would definitely not pay for recruiting softwares. I 100% agree. The problem is we get put in that bucket, and people reach out and think we're a recruiting service, and we're just not even remotely in the same world. We're not even in the same, but because we're in recruiting, and I've made so many videos on this, but still you can't get everyone to watch the videos, but this is a real thing, Brian. And like, I'm listening to him and I'm like, gosh, he's so correct. And at the same time, I'm like, and everything that he's telling them to do is why we do what we do with the kids, almost to a T, like you said.
Yeah, he's giving you the answers to the test. But that's also why, our roster's grown by 75% in the time frame it has, because people are quickly learning from not just us, but kids we've worked with and parents we've worked with, because now it's tangible. It's out there for you to hear. You know what I mean? We can give you examples of follow-ups we did with them after they signed. We can give you examples of parent calls we're currently doing where they talk about it. Like, you don't have to take our word for it anymore. The difference between what we're doing, in an actual recruiting service. We are a coaching and mentoring service that is much different than what other people are doing. And that's why we thought this was important, because you can hear a coach saying exactly what we're teaching our guys to do, to the guys that it matters the most, which is the guys we work with. He's telling them exactly what they should be doing indirectly. If you're not one of the players that he's talking about,
Right.
that's in that pool of guys that they're already going to know about anyway. But the process applies. That we teach our guys in order for them to get in front of other coaches that are not James Franklin. And
Right.
and
Right.
he indirectly said that.
Yeah. We have one player that's we have a few players, right, that could be that are and will and can be recruited at that level. And a lot of it is because, we help the kids not just with recruiting, but in confidence and all these other areas of their life, which is why they wanted to work with us. But like, if you're if you're at that level, even if you're a freshman or a sophomore, like, and you're in that Penn State SEC Big Ten bucket, like you know what I mean? And like, they're all, because they've talked to your head coach, and they're all recruiting you, right? They're all going after the same guys. And that's why when I had Lane Kiffin come and speak at our live event, it was interesting to hear from him because he's selling the players, right? Whereas we teach players how to sell the coaches to offer them. When you were at Arkansas, it's like you got your bucket of guys, you're all selling the player on coming to Arkansas, right? So, but to be clear, we're talking about less than 1,000 out of 1.1 million fall in this bucket, right? And so, if you're in the bucket. So, what that's who James Franklin is recruiting and what they're referring to. He said, "I already know the guys. We know our guys," and they do, right? But what I want to make clear is the other, million, right? 1.09 million football players out there that aren't in that bucket, right? I agree. Recruiting services that send emails for you, that do the connections for you, the softwares that you create a profile and send out, like, no, I agree with him in that sense. But the fact that you sit back and coaches will find you, disaster, right? Because the Division II coaches don't have those bucket where they're all fighting for the same guys. They don't have that. So, and even some FCS and NAI and Division III, like it's all sleepers. It's literally the opposite.
Yeah, to a certain degree, and that's what I'm saying. As long as you understand who he's talking to, you're in good shape. And the elephant in the room that probably didn't get as much response because nobody likes to hear it. Was what he said there at the end. About typically the problem is the parents think the kids are much better than they actually are. As far as like their talent level and division they should be targeting, and that's a reality. That's not any disrespect to any parents or. Every parent's going to think really highly of their child. I've been doing this a long time. I get it. You know what I mean? But the reality of it is, in this game, if you waste too much time in the wrong place, you're going to be standing around on signing day, with no date. So that's a critical piece to it, which is why it's really important, to get an evaluation done, by somebody that you either trust or has some sort of credibility that you've seen do it before or whatever the case may be. That's why that's such a critical piece of the pie to try to you got to get in recruiting. You have to get your emotions out of it. You know what I mean? You just got to you have to be really truthful with yourself, in my opinion. As a parent, and I was a parent of a high school football player. So I know all too well how that goes. But I think that's critically important,
Yeah.
and that was a big piece that he said at the end that nobody really likes to, again, talk about, because you don't want to, you don't want to feel like you're disrespecting anybody, or, saying they don't know what they're talking about. Some of them may be very accurate in where they have their kid, pegged as what, division he should be targeting. Some of them may be really accurate, but for the most part, a lot of times if, kids are really grabbing up there where he's talking about, and they don't already know about them, then, the evaluation is a little out of whack usually most of the time.
And I want to be a little bit clear. It's and I know you were trying to be, you didn't want to come off as like, who's the best to do the evaluation, but I think we should be clear, right? Like, you want someone who has at least, 3, 4, 5 years of college football, specifically at the higher levels, recruiting experience, who's watched thousands and thousands and thousands of high school game tapes and evaluated them specifically at the college level. So not high school coaches who've looked at high school, and you want coaches that were responsible for recruiting these players and pegging them at a specific division, and then telling you, here's where this kid's at, right? And so high school football coaches, don't get me wrong, they're great, and they might be accurate in some senses too. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, when you have a college coach where their only job is to actually rate a player and grade them specifically on the grade that they have, and that's all they did, and they've done tens of thousands, if not tens of thousands of them, like, that's who you want grading. Because if you get this step wrong, I'll say it again, if you get this step wrong, you will waste all your time doing marketing, doing outreach, doing everything that we teach. You will waste all your time if you get it wrong. So, got to get it right up front. And obviously, you could do it with it, like I said, this is who we recommend doing it with. Obviously, we have a team in-house. We got 15 years of Division I recruiting experience specifically, at all levels now. So if you'd like us to do it, we'll leave a link in the description below. If you're on a podcast and you're just listening to us, you can go to gonextplay.com and click apply, because the first step of our application process, whether you work with us or not, is getting the professional evaluation. So however you find us, gonextplay.com, or you're on YouTube, we'll leave a link in the description below. But that's where you can go, get and click apply. And the first step is going to be to book a 15-minute call, because we want to make sure your son actually meets the criteria for us to even do a professional evaluation. If he does, cool. We'll do that first step, that professional evaluation, and we let you know where he grades at, whether it is D1 G5 or D1 Power 4, you'll know, or D1 FCS, D2 NAI, D3. And then I feel like what really separates us on these evaluations, Brian, is the fact that we not only tell them where they're at, but we also break down their film and tell them to move plays around so that they're in the right order. And we also share with that player what he needs to do to show on his film to get to the next level. So if he's at FCS and he wants to get to G5, or he's at D2 and he wants to get to FCS, here's exactly what college coaches want to see on your game film in order to get there. We tell you that, all of that, beforehand. And we do this because obviously we want to give you value. We want to show you how good we are at this. We want you to get results too, right away, right off the bat. And then lastly, it wouldn't be ethical, since we're a mentorship. We mentor kids. We teach them how to market themselves, sell themselves, confidently communicate with college coaches, without doing an evaluation. I don't know how any of these services out there, and there's lots of them, that just sign anybody up that pays. Like, we don't do that. We're not interested in that. And the reason we don't do that is because what are the expectations for the parents? If we were to just sign everybody up, everybody would have a D1 expectation and it would be a nightmare. So we're upfront, we're transparent, we do no fluff on these evaluations. We let you know exactly where he's at. And then we can move to the next stage of our application process, where there's 3 different steps. We interview the athlete, we interview the parents, we go through this whole process. And it's because we don't just do the service. And that's why in our first year, 83% of our kids got scholarship offers, football scholarship offers, and in our second, 95% of our seniors got football scholarship offers. And it's because we set expectations, we target the right schools, and then we have the right systems and processes and what we call playbooks for marketing themselves, doing outreach, email, omnipresent, DM. And then obviously we have tools and different softwares we use to expedite and make the process better and easier for them. But it starts with them learning it and doing it, right? And that's why we talk about creating businessmen, right? Because that's what it is today. It's a business. And so the kids that treat it as such and go after what they want, get it. If your expectation is your kid's going to the SEC or the Big Ten and he's already a senior, and you would know because the coaches would be selling the heck out of you to be there, right? And so, they for what? Why would they reach out to us, right? We have a couple, and it's purely because they want their kid to learn how to communicate confidently and have more confidence and all that, but not for offers, right? It doesn't even make sense. It's the other 99.9% that aren't being recruited by them.
Yeah. I mean, you just wrapped it up right there. Again, if you watch the video and you search the video, just understand what bucket of players you fall into, and who he's talking about. And, the moral of the story is, just to do your research, you know what I mean? And a lot of these guys that are promoting guys on social media and things like that, they're harping on that. Do your research, find out about me, this, that, and other, da, 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 da. Well, then when you do it, it may not be what you think it is. You know what I mean? I've seen some disastrous stuff even over the last couple of days. You know what I mean? Especially these guys that are promoting on social media, and that's kind of all they're doing. I saw a couple tweets on X the other day where, they were talking about the kid in the actual post, and then the video below it was the wrong kid. It was a total different kid below it. I don't know if it's automated or I don't know. So
No
I mean.
way.
Which, if it's player driven like ours is, you know what I mean? Our kid's not going to send out somebody else's video. So that's not going to happen. So, you know what I mean? You just got to do your research, guys. Go to the YouTube channel, check out, again, you don't have to take our word for it. Listen to people that have been through the program, that are currently through the program. And again, we have examples almost weekly now on parent calls and athlete calls of the parents and the athletes talking about working with us. Those are really strong, in my opinion. The more you can hear it from someone else, will really bring it home for you. So I highly suggest that you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really good. Love the video. Glad we broke this down, Brian, because I feel like, a lot of parents hear that and we agree with it, right? But there needs to be context to it as well. And understanding, like, everything he said is 100% accurate, but knowing, like, what are your options out there, and then also knowing where you fall in that is important. And so I urge Mr. Franklin to be careful, right? And others that are sharing this video who are, promoting other things. You know what I mean? Like, I checked out that one guy that was promoting. I was like, of course.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, though, James Franklin doesn't care. You know what I mean? He's just telling the truth. You know what I mean? So he's not in a position to have to break it down like we do. You know what I mean? He told the absolute truth. You know what I mean? So, he did.
The blanket statements, though, you know what I mean? The
Yeah,
truth,
he doesn't care about a blanket statement. You know what I'm saying?
the truth for him, but not for a DQ or an NAI. You
That's
know
what
what
I
I mean?
mean, though. That's exactly what
Yeah,
I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
it's
I
the
get it.
truth for him. That's what I'm saying. But that's why, again, it was important for us to break it down to what applies to us. You know what I mean? And again, I think you can find those examples in a lot of places.
Yeah, yeah. When Lane Kiffin came and spoke at the live event, it really opened my eyes to the difference between an FCS and even a G5, an FCS and a Division II recruiting process versus an SEC recruiting process. Like, it's insane, the difference,
Yeah,
and how they could the
it's like
difference
that
between.
for a reason, obviously. You know what I mean? So it's been like
Yeah.
that forever. It's just more services out there now than ever before, probably trying to do certain things. So you just gotta, it's muddy water. You just gotta take your time and try to, sift through it as much as you can and make a good decision.
Like Brian said, though, one with this, just do your research. Take the time, do your research. So awesome. All right, good stuff. Brian, anything else you want to share before we wrap this bad boy up?
All good.
All right, cool. Well, wherever you're listening to this particular podcast, please, if you can, leave us a review. It helps us to continue to create content, and leave questions in your review. We use that to answer questions, to answer the questions that you have, right? And provide content that's valuable for you. If you're not watching this on YouTube, definitely want to check us out. It's just under my name, Richie Contratesi on YouTube. And we post a podcast every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific. We do a YouTube video every Wednesday, and an evaluation that we release every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific. So definitely make sure to check us out on YouTube. Consider subscribing if you do hit the bell notification. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Scholarship Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And for more free resources, or if you're interested in working with us, visit gonextplay.com. Until next time.